Good morning, folks. I'm Long Beach Mayor Rex Richardson. Thanks for joining us today for our weekly live stream where we provide updates on our local homelessness emergency. Today I'm joined by Alvin Teng, who's Special Projects Coordinator in the Homeless Services Bureau. And we have no ties on today because there's no council meeting. It's a dark Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month. We call Dark Tuesday because we don't have a city council meeting on this Tuesday, but we still are continuing our cadence on talking about the most important issue impacting our city, homelessness. So Alvin is here today with us to speak about tiny homes and our city's tiny home program. Our 2023 point-in-time homeless count showed that on any given night, we have more than 2,000 people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Long Beach, and that has been what we've been focused on. The clearest way to address this crisis is by providing opportunities for affordable, accessible, permanent housing. And at the same time, we recognize there's no one-size-fits-all solution and that we need to create a wide array of resources to meet everyone's needs. So thank you for joining us today. Alvin, can you help us set the table? Give us a little bit of a brief understanding on what a tiny home is.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mayor
Sure.
Richardson, and for convening these important conversations about the homelessness crisis in our city. So the general idea about tiny homes is really just building compact living spaces for people that can be deployed quickly and affordably for people who need that type of housing. Within a homelessness context, tiny homes have really provided either temporary shelter or permanent housing for those who are housing insecure with limited income that need that type of service.
Right.
In the past 10 years, there have been an increase in these types of communities, tiny home shelters, as well as different companies that are manufacturing these types of units. There are now over 100 different tiny home communities throughout the country that are utilizing this program model.
So tiny homes aren't like your typical shelter. Can you share more about the benefits of a tiny home as opposed to, let's say, a congregate shelter and why the city's been looking to build them?
Sure. So as you know, and as the audience knows, overall, the city's approach to addressing this homelessness crisis is really rooted and centers trauma-informed care and housing first principles. So what housing first means is that we sort of recognize that there are a lot of different barriers to people accessing permanent housing. And we, where possible, we are really focused on providing shelter and housing first. We know that having a stable and secure and safe place to live is really a prerequisite for people to be able to overcome their barriers to being permanently housed. And so that's why, in addition to increasing the production of permanent affordable housing, the city is also prioritizing creating interim or temporary housing for people who are currently unsheltered to get into that sort of safe space in order to work on their housing goals. So the main difference between a tiny home model and what some might consider a more traditional model of shelter is the fact that they're non-congregate.
Right.
So when you say shelter, a lot of people might think of a wide open space with lots of cots in a row, and that type of model does really work well for a lot of people. They need that space for shelter, and it is definitely more cost efficient. But we know that there are a lot of people that might not work for, and so that's why the city has really mobilized these types of non-congregate sites. Non-congregate, which really means every participant gets their own room, their own private restroom, and supportive services, case management, things like that to really meet their basic needs. As you know, over the past 3 years, the city has really embraced this non-congregate model. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to master lease 3 different motels at different points to house people. And while the main focus of that was to give people experiencing homelessness the space to shelter in place and remain safe during the pandemic, what we also saw was, as you might guess, much better outcomes for folks as they were in that type of private space. We saw much better connections to permanent housing and better behavioral outcomes, things like that. So the goal, so really after that, we wanted to embrace and look for different opportunities to expand our non-congregate shelters as much as possible. So over the past 3 years, we have purchased 2 different motel properties and that have been converted into interim housing. We've also leased different motels, so offering motel vouchers as well as our encampment resolution program where we are offering motel vouchers for people on the street. So these upcoming tiny home shelters really provide a lot of those same benefits when it comes to congregate or non-congregate housing. So they provide a sense of privacy, their own space, safety, and autonomy. Really, a lot of things that we would all want if we were in that type of a situation. People are also placed within a community of people, so a lot of other people who are working on the same goals of permanent housing and working towards that goal of permanent housing. They also provide a space that's very similar to an apartment, so you have your own space, your own bathroom, and really just prepares people for that transition into permanent housing. Through conducting surveys of our participants, we also have seen that nearly 90% of people responding said that they'd be interested in a tiny home model. So modular, and then comparing these to motels and other facilities, modular tiny homes can also be deployed much more quickly and much more efficiently than other shelter models.
Yeah, that's good. So this is something that we've been in support of. But we haven't done it yet. So what would this program look like locally here in the city of Long Beach?
Yeah, so there's definitely a very wide range of potential program models when we're talking about tiny home shelters. It's everything from these very mobile temporary shelters that we could just put down on a flat piece of ground and provide instant housing, and then all the way through sort of like modulars that are heavily designed, they're installed in the ground connected to utilities that are a little bit more elaborate. So our program model really, or our envisioned program model has really been influenced by best practice research as well as the input of those who would actually be utilizing these shelters. So the health department has began researching that potential model back in 2021, and really working with sort of construction experts, other manufacturers, and then also visiting several different of the examples of these types of communities. And we also surveyed about over 100 people at the MSC, really trying to get the input from those who would be most impacted by this service. Really the most requested thing from local people here experiencing homelessness was having a private restroom and showers, as well as security and in-unit electricity. So again, a lot of things that I think you and I would want if we were in that type of situation. So we really prioritize that. So right now our envisioned program is that the Long Beach tiny home shelter community would consist of 33 units, 6 of which are ADA accessible. Each unit will have its own restroom and shower, bed and storage space, its own HVAC system, as well as connection to utilities, so water, power, and sewage. Each unit will have its own fire suppression system. So what we've also seen in other locations is there is a fire risk associated with these. So we really wanted to emphasize fire-resistant materials, fire sprinklers, all of that stuff within each unit. And then also site improvements to the surrounding area, so communal areas with fencing and lighting, security station, office space for case management, gathering spaces, a warming kitchen for meals, and then also landscaped open space for individuals. So in terms of services, the project that we envision would serve adults experiencing homelessness, prioritizing those who are chronically homeless or have been homeless for over a year. So we really recognize that those are the folks who we need to get off the street as soon as possible. Each participant will also receive daily meals, as I said, case management, and then also referrals to all the different types of services that can help them overcome their houselessness. So things like mental health supports, substance use supports, employment, and things like that. And then also the vision is that the site would be secured and supervised at all times with staff on site 24/7.
So the idea is that these are cost effective and it offers privacy and dignity, and that the data shows it's more effective in connecting people to a pathway toward permanent housing. That's why it makes sense. So I know that building our own tiny home community in Long Beach is one of our goals within our declaration of a local emergency. So can you give us an update on our progress? What progress have you made to date?
Yeah, absolutely. So the foundational work of these tiny home communities, shelter communities, really predates the emergency. So as you know, the city has been committed to working on homelessness for a long time. But the provisions within the emergency have really allowed us to accelerate our progress. Things like streamlining and additional funding has really made it much more possible, and we are hoping to roll it out very soon. So back in 2021, we did conduct research and develop our program model, as I mentioned, using research and best practices. The city team also was able to identify and allocate federal recovery funding in 2021.
Right.
And then also later were able to apply and receive funding from the state for the Project Home Key program. Exactly. And then once we were awarded that funding, the city team has been moving forward with implementing the program. So we've been bringing in our partners from Public Works and then also bringing on architecture and construction consultants to help design the sites and begin planning for it. The city has also procured a modular manufacturer, Connect Shelters, that a developer who has really supported a lot of similar projects in California, in other California cities. And then we've also are able to provide the quality of shelter unit that we're looking for. Over the past year, the city team has, and those consultants have also been moving forward with designing those site improvements. And then the manufacturing of those modular units that we're hoping to roll out is already underway.
Right.
So going back to the emergency declaration, that has really, as I mentioned, been crucial in our efforts. We have been able to streamline the permitting process and also the procurement of consultants due to our emergency provisions. We also were able to utilize the one-time funds that you and City Council allocated for this effort to also help account for some of the increased costs due to labor shortages and supply chain issues that are facing construction projects across the nation. We've also, as previously announced, we did initially identify the parking lot of the Multi-Service Center, the MSC, as an ideal location for this project due to sort of the co-located services, the site location, amenities, things like that.
Right.
However, during the process of our development, the location has been determined to not be viable due to potential impacts on surrounding Port of Long Beach construction projects. And so, as a result, the city is currently reviewing and assessing other potential project sites within the city, and we will be engaging you all and the public about those sites in the near future. We do remain extremely committed to rolling this project forward as quickly as possible, especially in light of our emergency and recognizing the urgent need for interim housing.
Well, keep up the good work. It's certainly unfortunate to hit a stumble, right? I wouldn't call it a roadblock. I would just say a stumble, but I've seen what the city is capable of doing. Particularly since we've been organized through this state of emergency. So, let's keep working through it, and we'll identify the right location for this initial tiny home community. And we know that providing multiple options for better support of people experiencing homelessness is critical to our success. And we have great folks like Alvin who certainly are committed and know the work and are working through this every day to make sure that we can make a meaningful difference in people's lives. So thank you, Alvin, for coming and being with us today, and thank all of you for joining this week's live stream. So now we'll proceed with interpretation in Spanish and Khmer. Thank you.
Buenos días, gracias por unirse a nosotros para nuestra transmisión en vivo semanal donde proporcionamos actualizaciones sobre la situación de emergencia de las personas sin hogar. El alcalde de Long Beach, Rex Richardson, estuvo acompañado por Alvin Teng, coordinador de proyectos especiales de la Oficina de Servicios para las Personas sin Hogar. Alvin estuvo aquí para hablar con nosotros sobre las casas pequeñitas o tiny homes y el programa de casas pequeñitas de la ciudad. Nuestro momento actual puntual señala que en 2023, en cualquier noche, una noche cualquiera, más de 2.000 personas que están pasando por la falta de vivienda y sin un techo en la ciudad de Long Beach. La forma más clara de abordar esta crisis es proporcionar oportunidades de vivienda permanente asequible y accesible. Al mismo tiempo, reconocemos que no existe una solución única para todos los casos y que necesitamos crear una amplia gama de recursos para satisfacer las necesidades de todos. La idea general de las casas pequeñitas o tiny homes es construir espacios habitables más pequeños y compactos que puedan desplegarse rápidamente y ofrecerse a un costo accesible. En los últimos 10 años, las oportunidades de abrigo, de amparo, de casas pequeñitas ha aumentado, así como también las empresas que fabrican estas unidades modulares. En la actualidad, hay más de 100 comunidades de abrigos, de amparo, de casas pequeñitas en todo el país. En general, el enfoque de la ciudad para hacer frente a esta crisis de personas sin hogar se centra en los principios de la atención informada por el trauma y vivienda primero. Sabemos que disponer de un lugar estable, seguro y tranquilo donde vivir es el requisito básico para que las personas que necesitan puedan superar otros obstáculos y permanecer en sus viviendas. Por eso, además de aumentar la producción de viviendas asequibles, el ayuntamiento está dando prioridad a la creación de viviendas provisionales o temporales para las personas que actualmente no tienen techo. La principal diferencia entre el modelo de tiny houses o casas pequeñitas y un concepto más tradicional de albergue es que son individuales. Esto significa que cada participante tendrá su propia habitación, baño privado, con servicios de apoyo como gestión de casos, comida y transporte. Durante la pandemia de el COVID-19, la ciudad utilizó fondos estatales y federales para alquilar y comprar moteles que funcionaran como viviendas provisionales o refugios individuales. Además de ayudar a las personas sin alejamiento a refugiarse en un lugar y mantener un distanciamiento social, también vimos resultados mucho mejores en términos de progresos en los objetivos, en encontrar viviendas permanentes, problemas de comportamiento y bienestar en general. Mientras la realización de encuestas aquí en Long Beach dice que casi el 90% de los encuestados sin viviendas informaron que estarían interesados en una casa pequeñita si estuviera disponible. Nuestro modelo de programa se ha basado en la investigación de las mejores prácticas, y de las aportaciones de las personas más afectadas. Long Beach, en el centro de comunitario de casas pequeñitas o tiny homes constará con 33 unidades y 6 de ellas tendrán acceso bajo la ley de las personas con discapacidades de los Estados Unidos, ADA. Cada unidad tendrá su propia baño, ducha, cama y espacio de almacenamiento, sistema de calefacción, ventilación, aire acondicionado y conexiones con los sistemas de agua, electricidad y de cloacas. Cada unidad tendrá su propio sistema de extinción de incendios y estará fabricada con materiales resistentes al fuego, ya que la seguridad contra incendios y la durabilidad son grandes prioridades. El proyecto se destinará a adultos individuales sin hogar, dando prioridad a las personas que están en estado de indigencia crónica. Cada participante recibirá 3 comidas, gestión individualizada de casos, derivación a viviendas permanentes, salud mental, servicios de ayuda con el consumo de sustancias, empleo y otros servicios de apoyo. El centro estará supervisado en todo momento por el personal y seguridad in situ 24 horas al día, los 7 días de la semana. El trabajo fundacional para traer las casas pequeñitas o tiny homes en Long Beach es anterior a la respuesta de emergencia, pero las disposiciones creadas por nuestra proclamación de emergencia han agilizado y acelerado nuestra capacidad para entregar estas casas pequeñitas. El equipo de la ciudad contrató a un fabricante modular y seleccionó a Connect Shelters, un promotor que ha apoyado en proyectos similares en muchas otras ciudades en California. A lo largo del año pasado, el equipo municipal y los consultores avanzaron en el diseño de las mejoras del emplazamiento de las unidades modulares. Como se había anunciado anteriormente, el equipo municipal identificó inicialmente el estacionamiento de los centros de multiservicios como la ubicación preferible para este programa piloto debido a la ubicación conjunta de los servicios y comodidades, así como se trata de una instalación municipal ya existente. Sin embargo, se ha determinado que esta ubicación ya no es viable debido a los posibles impactos en los proyectos de construcción y de las propiedades circundantes del puerto de Long Beach. La ciudad está revisando y evaluando urgentemente otros posibles emplazamientos para el proyecto y consultará al público en un futuro próximo. La dirección de la ciudad está plenamente comprometida a hacer que el proyecto funcione una vez que se haya identificado el lugar. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos hoy.
But some children so bomb on the acne, you come some time knock on young children the bomb on the band time down, trot up slap cap side, toal, jump sapadas, ray on P, Vitina and the North right that tongue and we bat nay pipanatan, the cronty crong long bit about young. Tiny look at Pibal Crong Rex Richardson mean pneume roop, could look tang Alvin, dial GM and tray some rob some rule, come room, pisa, the crong carrier light, save a chun and atar by young. លោក Alvin មកចូលរួមនៅថ្ងៃនេះដើម្បីជម្រាបជូនបងប្អូនអំពីអ្វីទៅដែលជាកូនផ្ទះនិងអ្វីទៅជាកម្មវិធីកូនផ្ទះរបស់សាលាក្រុងបើដូចបងប្អូនបានជ្រាបស្រាប់ទៅហើយព័ត៌មានដែលយើងប្រមូលបានពីការរាប់ចំនួនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលអនាថានៅឆ្នាំ2023បានបង្ហាញថាយប់ណាក៏ដូចយប់ណាគឺមានប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងជាង 2000 នាក់ដែលរស់នៅក្នុងស្ថានភាពដែលគ្មានទីជម្រកនិងភាពអនាថានៅក្នុងទីក្រុងឡុងប៊ីចរបស់យើង vàដូច្នេះមធ្យោបាយដ៏ជាក់លាក់ប្រកបនិយមនឹងឃើញច្បាស់នឹងភ្នែកដើម្បីដោះស្រាយវិបត្តិនេះគឺយើងផ្ដល់ឱកាសឲ្យបានច្រើនសម្រាប់បងប្អូនយើងមានលទ្ធភាពទទួលបានលំនៅឋានដែលមានតម្លៃថោកសមរម្យនិងផ្ទះនៅអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍ បាទទន្ទឹមនឹងនេះយើងទទួលស្គាល់ថាគ្មានដំណោះស្រាយឯណាមួយដែលអាចដោះស្រាយបានគ្រប់បញ្ហានោះទេម្ល៉េះហើយយើងត្រូវតែបង្កើតឲ្យមានជាធនធានចម្រុះច្រើនយ៉ាងដើម្បីបំពេញទៅតាមសេចក្តីត្រូវការរបស់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើង ជារួមគំនិតដែលបង្កើតឲ្យមានកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺយើងសាងសង់កន្លែងដែលមានទំហំតូចល្មមរស់នៅបានបាទដែលអាចសាងសង់ឆាប់រហ័សនិងផ្ដល់ជូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងនៅក្នុងតម្លៃថោកសមរម្យ នៅក្នុងរយៈពេល 10 ឆ្នាំកន្លងទៅនេះមានទីជម្រកស្នាក់នៅក្នុងទម្រង់ជារូបកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺមានការឡើងនៅក្នុងសហគមន៍របស់យើងជាមួយគ្នានេះក្រុមហ៊ុនដែលសាងសង់កូនផ្ទះក៏កើនឡើងដែរដើម្បីបំពេញទៅតាមសេចក្តីត្រូវការផ្នែកសំណង់ផ្ទះតូចនេះ សប្តាហ៍ថ្ងៃនេះយើងមានសហគមន៍ដែលមានទីជម្រកស្នាក់នៅនៅក្នុងទម្រង់ជាកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺមានជាង 100 សហគមន៍ទៅហើយនៅទូទាំងប្រទេស បាទជារួមសាលាក្រុងឡុងប៊ិចរបស់យើងបានអនុវត្តវិធីសាស្ត្រដោះស្រាយវិបត្តិនៃភាពអនាថាដោយយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ខ្លាំងជាងគេទៅលើការថែទាំនិងព្យាបាលជំងឺបាក់ស្បាតនិងការផ្ដល់លំនៅឋានស្នាក់នៅឲ្យបានគ្រប់គ្នាតាមដែលអាចធ្វើទៅបាន បើយើងដឹងហើយថាការមានកន្លែងមួយនៅប្រកបគត់មុតនឹងមានភាពសុខសាន្តគឺដើម្បីរស់នៅគឺជាលក្ខខណ្ឌតម្រូវជាមូលដ្ឋាននៃសេចក្តីត្រូវការរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនិងជាគោលដៅរបស់មន្ត្រីនិងភាគីពាក់ព័ន្ធរបស់យើងដែលត្រូវសម្រេចឲ្យបានដើម្បីជំនះរាល់ឧបសគ្គផ្សេងៗទៀតដែលរារាំងដល់ការបន្តឲ្យមានការដែលជាលំនៅឋានស្នាក់នៅអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍នោះបាទនៅក្នុងន័យនេះឯងហើយដែលសាលាក្រុងឡុងប៊ិចដុតដៃដុតជើងបង្កើនការសាងសង់លំនៅឋានដែលមានតម្លៃថោកសមរម្យផងនិងបង្កើនសន្ទុះនៃអាទិភាពនៅក្នុងគ្រាដែលមានអាសន្នដើម្បីឬក៏អន្តរកាលដើម្បីបង្កើតទីជម្រកស្នាក់នៅបណ្ដោះអាសន្នសម្រាប់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងដែលកំពុងតែរស់នៅដោយគ្មានទីជម្រកនោះផង បើនិយាយអំពីគំរូកូនផ្ទះនិងផ្ទះទូទៅគឺលក្ខណៈខុសគ្នាវាត្រង់ថាកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺជាទីជម្រកមួយដែលអ្នករស់នៅមិនផ្ដុំគ្នាធ្វើអ្វីៗនៅរួមគ្នាទេមានន័យថាកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺម្នាក់មានបន្ទប់ដាច់ដោយឡែករៀងៗខ្លួនមានទាំងបន្ទប់គេងបន្ទប់ទឹកហើយមានសេវាគាំពារដូចជាសេវាជួយគ្រប់គ្រងសំណុំរឿងសេវាផ្ដល់អាហារហូបចុកនិងមធ្យោបាយដឹកជញ្ជូនផង កាលពីអំឡុងពេលនៃការរីករាលដាលនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 សាលាក្រុងយើងបានប្រើប្រាស់មូលនិធិរបស់រដ្ឋនិងជាតិដើម្បីជួលនិងជាវផ្ទះសំណាក់ដើម្បីយកទៅធ្វើជាលំនៅឋានបណ្ដោះអាសន្នឬក៏ទីជម្រកដែលមានបន្ទប់ស្នាក់នៅដាច់ដោយឡែករៀងៗខ្លួននេះដែរ យើងមិនមែនត្រឹមតែជួយបងប្អូនអនាថាឲ្យមានទីជម្រកស្នាក់នៅសមរម្យនៅទីកន្លែងដែលអាចរក្សាកម្រិតដើម្បីបង្ការការឆ្លងរីករាលដាលនៃជំងឺ COVID-19 តែប៉ុណ្ណោះទេក៏ប៉ុន្តែយើងសង្កេតឃើញលទ្ធផលដ៏គាប់ប្រសើរពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងភាពជឿនលឿននៅក្នុងការសម្រេចគោលដៅ នឹងការកើននៅក្នុងការទទួលបានកន្លែងស្នាក់នៅអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍ភាពល្អប្រសើរឡើងខាងបញ្ញាឬក៏បញ្ហាអាកប្បកិរិយានិងសុខុមាលភាពទូទៅរបស់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងផងបើតាមការស្ទង់មតិដែលយើងធ្វើនៅទីនេះគឺនៅក្នុងទីក្រុងឡុងបេរបស់យើងឃើញថាប្រជាពលរដ្ឋអាណាថាជិត 90% ដែលឆ្លើយសំណួរបានប្រាប់មកយើងថាពួកគាត់ចាប់អារម្មណ៍នឹងកូនផ្ទះនេះបើមានសម្រាប់ជូនពួកគាត់សូមជម្រាបថាគំរូនៃកម្មវិធីកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺបានពីការស្រាវជ្រាវមើលការអនុវត្តល្អៗនិងអំពីគំនិតរបស់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងដែលហែលឆ្លងវិបត្តិនៃភាពអនាថានេះសហគមន៍ទីជម្រកកូនផ្ទះរបស់ទីក្រុងឡុងបេរបស់យើងមានកូនផ្ទះចំនួន33ខ្នងដែលក្នុងនោះមានកូនផ្ទះ6ខ្នងត្រូវបានសាងសង់ដើម្បីជួយសម្រួលដល់ជនពិការផងបាទនៅក្នុងកូនផ្ទះនីមួយៗគឺសុទ្ធតែមានបន្ទប់ទឹកដាច់ដោយឡែកនិងមានកន្លែងងូតទឹកផ្កាឈូកមានគ្រែគេងនិងកន្លែងដាក់អីវ៉ាន់មានប្រព័ន្ធម៉ាស៊ីនត្រជាក់មានបណ្ដាញទឹកភ្លើងមួយកំភ្លេបាទបន្ទប់នីមួយៗសុទ្ធតែមានប្រព័ន្ធការពារអគ្គិភ័យរៀងៗខ្លួនប្រព័ន្ធនេះធ្វើពីសម្ភារៈដែលធន់នឹងភ្លើងព្រោះបញ្ហាសុវត្ថិភាពអគ្គិសនីនិងភាពធន់ប្រើប្រាស់បានយូរអង្វែងនេះគឺជាអ្វីដែលយើងយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ខ្លាំងជាងគេបាទគម្រោងកូនផ្ទះនេះគឺសម្រាប់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងដែលពេញវ័យនិងអ្នកដែលកំពុងតែរស់នៅក្នុងស្ថានភាពអនាថាដោយយើងផ្ដល់អាទិភាពដល់បងប្អូនអនាថាណាដែលមានជំងឺរ៉ាំរ៉ៃប្រចាំកាយឲ្យបានផ្ទះនេះនៅមុនគេបើយើងប្រៀបធៀបទៅអ្នកដទៃបងប្អូនដែលបានផ្ទះនេះហើយនឹងទទួលបានអាហារ3ពេលមានជំនួយជួយគ្រប់គ្រងសំណុំរឿងមានសេវាជួយបញ្ជូនបន្តទៅរកលំនៅឋានអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍មានសេវាថែទាំសុខភាពផ្លូវចិត្តសេវាបន្សាបគ្រឿងញៀនការងារសេវារកការងារធ្វើនិងសេវាគាំពារជាច្រើនទៀតបាទទីតាំងនៃសំណង់កូនផ្ទះនេះនឹងត្រូវមានការមើលខុសត្រូវគ្រប់ពេលវេលាគឺដោយបុគ្គលិកផងដោយឆ្មាំសន្តិសុខផងដែលនៅប្រចាំការ24ម៉ោងលើ24ម៉ោង7ថ្ងៃនៅក្នុងមួយសប្តាហ៍តាមពិតគំនិតឲ្យមានគម្រោងសាងសង់កូនផ្ទះនៅទីក្រុងឡុងបិចយើងនេះមានតាំងតែពីមុនយុទ្ធនាការដោះស្រាយវិបត្តិនៃភាពអនាថាមកម្ល៉េះទោះជាយ៉ាងនេះក្តីយើងបានសេចក្តីប្រកាសរបស់មន្ត្រីក្រុងប្រឹក្សាក្រុងដែលដាក់បញ្ហាអនាថានេះថាជារឿងប្រកាសអាសន្នដែលត្រូវដោះស្រាយជារឿងបន្ទាន់គឺយើងមានគោលការណ៍ច្បាប់នេះឯងហើយដែលជួយបង្កើនថាមពលនិងបង្កើនសន្ទុះនៃលទ្ធភាពរបស់យើងនៅក្នុងការផ្ដល់ទីជម្រកក្នុងទម្រង់ជាកូនផ្ទះតូចនេះបាទក្រុមការងាររបស់សាលាក្រុងបានធ្វើលទ្ធកម្មសម្រាប់រករោងចក្រផលិតផ្ទះគំរូនេះហើយបានជ្រើសរើសយកក្រុមហ៊ុនសំណង់មួយឈ្មោះថា Connect Shelters ដែលជាក្រុមហ៊ុនអភិវឌ្ឍន៍ដែលជួយគាំពារគម្រោងស្រដៀងគ្នានេះនៅតាមបណ្ដាទីក្រុងជាច្រើនផ្សេងទៀតនៅរដ្ឋ California របស់យើងទាំងមូលបាទកាលពីឆ្នាំមុនក្រុមការងាររបស់សាលាក្រុងនិងអ្នកពីគ្រោះយោបល់ក៏បានចាប់ផ្ដើមរៀបចំគូសប្លង់និងរចនាឲ្យមើលកែលម្អគំរូកូនផ្ទះនិងទីតាំងសម្រាប់សាងសង់វាដោយគំរូនៃកូនផ្ទះនេះត្រូវបានសាងសង់ជាបណ្ដារួចទៅហើយបាទដោយបានប្រកាសកាលពីមុនរួចមកហើយដែរគឺក្រុមស្ថាប័នសាលាក្រុងនេះគឺការពីដំបូងបានកំណត់យកទីតាំងនៃចំណតរថយន្តនៅឯមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលពហុសេវាឬក៏ MSC យកមកធ្វើជាទីតាំងដែលសម្រាប់មុនគេសម្រាប់អនុវត្តកម្មវិធីសាកល្បងនេះព្រោះទីតាំងនេះមានភាពអំណោយផលដោយសារតែវាមានសេវាអ្វីៗស្រាប់នៅទីនោះហើយម្យ៉ាងទៀតទីនេះក៏ជាសម្បត្តិរបស់សាលាក្រុងផងបើទោះបីជាយ៉ាងនេះក្តីទីតាំងនេះឥឡូវលែងជាកន្លែងប្រកាសសម្រាប់ការសាងសង់ផ្ទះនេះទៀតហើយគឺមិនប្រកាសនោះដោយសារតែវាមានផលប៉ះពាល់ជាច្រើនជាយថាហេតុពីគម្រោងសាងសង់ដែលត្រូវធ្វើនាពេលឆាប់ខាងមុខនេះនៅម្ដុំជុំវិញអគារនៃកំពង់ផែក្រុងឡុងបិចរបស់យើងនៅក្នុងបរិបទនេះសាលាក្រុងកំពុងតែពិនិត្យមើលឡើងវិញជាបន្ទាន់ហើយក៏វាតម្លៃទីតាំងដែលមានសក្តានុពលឲ្យទៀតនៅក្នុងក្រុងនឹងត្រូវពឹងលើមតិរបស់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងឲ្យជួយជាគំនិតនៅក្នុងពេលឆាប់ខាងមុខនេះបាទថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំរបស់សាលាក្រុងឡុងបិចក៏មានការតាំងចិត្តនិងបដិញ្ញាចិត្តខ្ពស់ដែរនៅក្នុងការធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យកិច្ចការដែលរៀបចំសាងសង់គម្រោងកូនផ្ទះនេះអាចចាប់ផ្ដើមធ្វើភ្លាមនៅពេលដែលយើងកំណត់ទីតាំងសាងសង់បានរួចរាល់នោះបាទសូមអរគុណបងប្អូនទាំងអស់ដែលបានត្រង់ត្រាប់ស្ដាប់ការផ្សាយបន្តផ្ទាល់ប្រចាំសប្ដាហ៍របស់យើងខ្ញុំបាទសូមជម្រាបលា